Hello, my name is Baroki. I'm trying to make the most beautiful music in the world and build a community around it. And today I'm doing a Q&A. Might seem a little bit absurd, but I'm gonna ask myself questions because I don't have the kind of following yet that lends itself to participating in a Q&A. If I ask for questions, I can't really be confident I'll get enough to ask myself. So I've just made up a bunch of questions to ask myself. So, without further ado, here comes my Q&A with myself.
You can stand up. You can stand up on this. You can stand up. You can stand up on it. You can stand up on it. You can stand up. You can stand up on this.
So first, number one. Out of Lewis Cole and Jacob Collier, who would win? For me right now, Lewis Cole would win because he has been on repeat in my ears lately. I usually listen to music like that. I'm usually listening to one particular artist and kind of nobody else, and currently that person is Lewis Cole for me. Just an amazing musician. Obviously, Jacob Collier is also an amazing musician. They're both really people that just blow my mind over and over and make me feel deep things. But right now, Lewis Cole, he's got me. He's got me by the heart. By the heartstrings. He's got my heart on a string. Okay. How long have I been singing / playing drums / making music? Well, I've been singing since I was really small. I sort of clearly liked it enough that my mum enrolled me in a musical when I was 6. I'm like, a pretty, I don't know, an amateur production, but like a serious one, you know what I mean? I think it took a long time of prep. Really was taken seriously and put on in a big theatre in Canberra, where I grew up. So, and it was just so you know, it was Judith Klingen's, and she's like an institution in Canberra, Judith Klingen's Peter Pan, I believe. I believe that was my first experience of theatre and also of musical performance. And I was some kind of a beast. There were a bunch of them, and we wore like patterned. I think I got to wear leopard skin and a big helmet, like an animal helmet of some sort, miscellaneous beast. And I was also, I think I was like a fairy. Like I wasn't Tinkerbell, but I was someone like it, you know. Playing drums is very recent. I started I actually have a memory of banging, like really enjoying banging on a drum in one of Judith Klingen's productions when I think I was the last person there, so I was kind of being babysat a little bit. I think Judith was doing some emails and I was just sitting in the corner banging on a drum, which somehow didn't bother her. Maybe I did it real quietly, or maybe she's just very tolerant. But I remember being very young and really enjoying banging on that drum. It was like a little tambourine type drum without the metal bits. But I really started I played a drum kit for the first time, other than like maybe once or twice. I tried my friend Syl's kit when I was like 13 or 14, but I didn't. I would have played for 30 seconds kind of thing. So I really started when in 2017 when I received, possibly 2018. I think 2017. Who knows? Let's call it late 2017. So that was what, 5 or 6 years ago. So actually, it's been long enough that I should probably be better than I am. But I have existed without a drum kit a lot of that time. I finally brought my electric kit from Australia over to France here in a suitcase a few months ago after getting married, um, and so now I've been back at it, and you can see that in my Kud video that came out recently, like a live video for Kud where I play all the instruments in a style not unlike Jacob Collier or Lewis Cole. The video style is, I guess the music style is vaguely comparable, but also perhaps not. And making music, I really started writing songs when I was 13 years old. I would have been 2008. I think I wrote my first song either then or maybe 2007. In the secret of my room. My sister found the lyrics for it in a box, not that recently, but at some point. So I've got the lyrics somewhere. I think I've even got a photo of them. I should post them. And shortly after that, I found a way to make a band and start performing. Maybe not shortly. It might have been months after actually, but it felt like this amazing superpower when I figured out I could do it. It's pretty exciting. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember the song right now, but I think I actually sang it in a different solo podcast. So if you want to make your way through these podcasts, I imagine that would be very difficult because they can be very slow moving and rambling. But if you want to, I'm sure you can find it. And if you really want it, you can comment and I'll make another video just singing my first ever song that I wrote when I was 13 or 12. I think I was 12 for the first one. I was 13 when I really got the band together, which was called Dramatic Effect, and I believe still has music on MySpace. How can I make $1 million as a musician? So, despite what I said at the start, I'm actually incredibly unqualified to tell you that, for I have not made $1 million. In fact, I'm barely subsistent. I made just enough money to live on by music teaching. I've got another video more focusing on that, about the struggles of being an artist and making money and that kind of thing, as someone who's driven to do stuff that doesn't earn you money. Like writing songs does not directly earn you money. You have to really figure out how to make that work for you financially, and I have not yet really. From what I understand, making lots of things to share with people, lots of content and lots of songs is probably a good bet, volume, because if you do a ton of it, you'll probably get good at it, and some of them will be really good. I did hear recently that on a podcast, I think it's called like Muse Advice or something like that. It's one of the biggest sort of music business advice channels, from a guy who's like a sort of campaign manager type, like a publicity guy, I think, who talks to a lot of musicians and observes a lot of musicians' successes and failures. He said that actually you don't want to release that much content. You're better off releasing a single and kind of juicing it, really, like releasing like a lyric video, like album art video, then a lyric video, then a like proper music video type thing, and then waiting a while, then releasing another one. And so you're probably, the way he described it was about 6 singles a year. So that's like an album every 2 years. He sees that as the best bet because it gives people time to get excited about the work and make a real event of releases. And that made me a little sad because I really want to make as much music as I can in my life. And a lot of, I'm sure, like probably even most musicians feel, or like most people who make original work feel this way. And so, yeah, that makes me a little sad, but you can make albums and not put them out as well. And I think I remember hearing Aurora talk about that. She was like, yeah, I've already made this album that is to be released upon my death. I'm just keeping safe. I thought that was really cool. So here's to the many unreleased albums of Baroque that'll come out one day. But I think you know, I'm keen to humble myself to the discipline of following knowledgeable people's advice until I'm successful, as in until I'm making enough money that I don't need to worry too much about, what am I saying? Until I have some kind of a safety net over which to experiment, and then I feel like I'll probably just like release everything, release like 6 albums in a year. And I mean, yeah, there are examples of people. I can't remember. King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. I believe they released so many albums I've lost count. And I think they average, I can't remember, it's 2 a year or like 4 or 6 or something absolutely outrageous. It's a lot. It's at least 2. And so they're an example of a higher release threshold. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. I feel like I'm talking about compression. It was just occurring to me while I was losing my lost train of thought was the result of a new thought, which was that maybe you just have to be consistent. People expect that of King Gears, of Lizard, and so as long as they keep providing that, that's like their brand. People can still get very excited about it. But this is all kind of speaking from a place of knowing nothing and just having listened to people who might know something and observed them. I have not made $1 million from being a musician. That's for sure. 5. It hurts when I sing. What should I do? Obviously, these questions are not necessarily related at all, but I can imagine someone writing in with that. And my interest might be piqued. So the first thing I would say is be gentle, be cautious. Maybe go see an ENT specialist, like an ear, nose, and throat specialist, and just see if there's like some kind of injury that's observable. Because if there is, and they can tell you about it, then that's ideal, because obviously I can't tell you about it from this question, which was in fact made up by me anyway. But some other things you can do are like, if you're reassured by a specialist, I mean, you can go, probably the process is go to see a GP and then they'll refer you to an ENT specialist. I'm not sure, maybe you can get straight into an ENT. It probably depends where you are and who you are and all sorts of stuff. But I would experiment with some things after doing that. Especially if they say there's nothing observably wrong, I would try massaging your jaw, massaging even around. So I do like the sides. My jaw is a classic. You can also do your temples and everything in between. You'll find there's a lovely little. Well, I find it's quite sore right now between my temples proper, and the sticky outy bit, where your jaw, the top bit of it, like where your skull kind of ends and your jaw begins. You can massage all around there. Do it kind of gently. I now do it semi-hard with my knuckles. I actually have calluses from the way my stubble rubs up against my middle fingers, middle knuckle of my middle fingers. That's what I usually use. I think you also want to be careful putting too much pressure on your temples, because that's one of the thinnest parts of your skull, and there's always the possibility you've got like an eggshell skull and you'll kill yourself or something. I don't think that's a high risk, but give yourself a little massage. You can also go under. Just experiment like going under with your thumbs under your jaw. This is all, I'm not a medical practitioner. I learned this stuff from singers back in my music degree, but it was game changing. Loosening up my jaw made me sing better. And you might even hear, I can feel that my voice has changed very slightly just from doing that just then. But yeah, you can go up under the jaw. You just want to be cautious when you do this. You can even, there's no bone there. You can push up right under, like kind of deep under your jaw, and you'll find a soft spot, which is kind of where your tongue root connects to your larynx. So you can you can loosen up your tongue root, which is tongue root tension is a very common problem for singers. You can also very gently, you really want to be cautious here because it can hurt, and I mean you're essentially choking yourself a little bit. But there are all these muscles that go around the larynx, but I like to massage above it more than underneath or on the actual. You can see my little pokey outy bit. You can give yourself a little massage just above the larynx, perhaps, is where I would direct you. You can also do they have a great name and I've forgotten it, the muscles that go along the side of your neck there. You can kind of like grab and then pull down. Oh, delicious, absolutely delicious, especially as I've actually started working these muscles a little bit at the gym, just to, apparently having a strong neck is a good thing to do, but you have to be very careful about how you do it. So yeah, I would say give yourself a massage. Maybe try things like singing lying down. I love experiments like that, or hanging upside down. Even just like stand and do a forward fold, like so you bend over. Like if I'm standing, now I'm bending the top half of me over, so I'm still standing, but I'm hanging. My head is hanging down. Try singing like that. Try singing while stretching your arm in a door frame. Try lots of things and just see. Try different sounds. I shouldn't ruffle the paper while I'm talking. Try different sounds like this is just classic singing teacher stuff. Try putting the sound very forward like that. Try and do like a like a what is it? I mean it's a witch cackle kind of thing. Maybe, I don't know. And then try and make your voice really woofy and back and sort of compress your larynx like that. And then try and be all moany. Try and do something dramatic. Try different stuff like that. Try doing it without breathing. Try doing it with lots of air. All sorts of stuff you can do. And you should. I don't know. But yeah, be gentle, be cautious. That said, I was told so much to be gentle and be cautious and try to be loose as a singing student in high school and uni even. I didn't figure this out. I didn't realize that you still require some kind of muscular involvement in order to sing. And so while you don't want anything to be like super tense, you don't want to be like gripping, you want to be using your jaw muscles to open your mouth, you want to be using your larynx muscles to move it around, and it's not actually optimal to have completely minimal muscular engagement. You don't want to be so relaxed in your throat, say. You don't want to be the absolute amount relaxed. You want a bit of activation, or I certainly had to learn that I did, to make satisfying sounds when I sing. Once again, I think I'm way more of an expert on this than I am on making $1 million, because I've done a singing degree and I've done a lot of singing and a lot of singing teaching. That said, you can listen to me sing. I'm not the best singer in the world. I'm gonna make a warm-up video and you'll be able to hear me sing really sort of vulnerably, because I'll just be doing like scales and it'll be, I won't have any musical backdrop. I'm just going to sing in the room. So look forward to that if that interests you. But yeah, if it hurts, first thing you should do is go to a doctor, probably, just to suss it out, to see whether it's muscular or whether there's some kind of like, who knows, like fissure. I don't know where that word comes from, I just like it. But whether you've got some kind of injury that is observable and means that you should actually just be quiet for several days. That's another thing that's very likely. This happens to singers quite often. They get laryngitis or some kind of vocal injury, and usually an ENT specialist will say, don't sing for a week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. And in fact, don't talk if you can possibly help it. Just go home and be silent for a long time. Which is really hard psychologically. Not just for singers, for anyone. It's quite hard to just not talk usually. We're very social, and it's amazing those periods in my life, because I've had a bunch of them, because I sing a lot, where I've either told myself or been told by a doctor I just need to be quiet for several days, they've always been kind of low periods for me, which makes sense, I guess. They're lonely. They're less expressive, even if I can write messages and that kind of thing. Okay, next question, and I'm kind of running out of time. I'll just try and talk really fast. I've been trying to learn to do that, and the last video was just terrible on that front. I don't know if I'm really built for talking fast, at least not sustainably, not in a sustained fashion. Way, not in a sustained way. That's the more humble word there. I'm trying to be humble. Am I? I'm trying to be myself. I'm trying to catch when I feel inauthentic. Tell me if you find certain moments in this video inauthentic. I feel like that bit just there. It doesn't matter. I'm overthinking all of this. Out of JD Beck and Thundercat, who would win? That's really hard for me. Who would win? Well, JD Beck and Dommy. Oh yeah, I meant Dommy and JD Beck instead of just JD Beck. Because Thundercat would win out of those two, because Thundercat's like a whole artist unto himself. But out of Dommy and JD Beck, I love their new album so much. I'm blanking on what it's called. It's called Not Tight, I believe. So good. It was kind of my obsession before this Lewis Cole phase. I just listened to that only for many weeks. But Thundercat's got like, I feel like Thundercat has just been around longer and he's older, and so he's more of a character. There's more material, and so I might pick Thundercat if I had if I could only listen to one of these artists until I died. I'd probably pick Thundercat. Plus, he's got a certain spirit that I just find really moving. But again, there's a wonderful spirit to Dommy and JD Beck. They haven't been around very long. They're very young, and so there's less of it. It's less developed, perhaps. So Thundercat wins. But damn, Dommy and JD Beck. Damn. 7. Your band is sick. Who are those guys? Oh, thanks. Questions $396 $. Those guys currently, because I live in Paris, those guys are called Fabien Blondet. He's the drummer, or Fabien Blondet, if you wanted to put an English or Aussie accent on it. And Denis Pitalua, or Dennis Pitalua, and drummer is Fabien. He's an extraordinary artist in his own right. He produces and makes and drums. Like, he really takes such a deep care with all my songs and stuff. He really tries to explore them and find his own kind of creative solutions for them, and it's wonderful to watch. It's such a joy to play with him. He's also just a deeply kind guy, and actually the reason I have a band is him. I reached out to him. I saw him play a set with a lady called Abrahams. A lady called, she's got a Collier Abrahams, or Collier Abrahams, amazing piano player, Parisian piano player, jazz piano player. He played a set with her. He was filling in, actually. He was subbing. I saw him play and I was like, wow, this guy's amazing. I will reach out to him on Instagram. And I was expecting to have to do that many times in order to get a band together for myself. But he was the first person I reached out to. I sent him my music and said, hey, I'm looking to put a band together and put out this EP. And he said that he liked the music and he would be really happy to meet up and jam it. And he even found me a bass player that he liked to play with, it turned out he was the same bass player who was playing at the Collier show, Denis, who is an amazing artist in his own right as well. He's like a kind of like a polymath engineering type, at least in my experience of him. He's amazing, and he'll solder back together his own cables, and he's also like an unbelievable, like he can mix and master like a pro. Really, both really extraordinary people, and he's kind of like the practical side of things. He's like, this is what needs to get done. This is how much money we need to make. This sort of thing. Whereas Fabian's like the warm. He's like, he just he's deeply warm and kind. And I'm just so grateful to both of them. Amazing people. What do we got next? And I mean, yeah, and you can check them out in. We got several live videos up. We got a video of Blush and a video of Raspberry Eyes on the YouTube channel, and then there are a bunch of like just clips from live shows that you can check out on Instagram that I've meant to post on YouTube. I'm not sure I have yet, but I may have by the time you watch this. Okay, couple more questions. We got, should I study music or psychology? So I've studied both, at least a bit. I haven't done the full churn. I mean, I've done a bachelor in each, let's say. I actually did a grad dip for the psychology, but it's kind of the equivalent. It's like a sped up bachelor for people who already have bachelor's degrees and therefore don't need some of the leeway that first time students do. So I've done both. It probably depends what you like. Psychology is a great introduction to science, especially like one of the directions that science has been going. It's been going for a long time, but social science, I guess. So like, it's on like the rigorous end of social science, I would say, because it touches like there's plenty of like neuroscience and stuff that's like much more like the parameters are much more constrained. I'm not sure that makes it's just easier to be confident that you haven't just like made this shit up, that you haven't like just be confident in the results that you get. Now, like even in really rigorous science, there's actually plenty of like physics. Say there's room at least in the experiments to check physical stuff. I think there's plenty of room for wiggling and waggling. I'm not very good at talking about this, maybe because it's not really my area of expertise, but doing a psychology degree helped me understand science. I feel like understand what science is a little bit better, because people have science, often people use the word to mean like facts or something, which is totally not what it is. It's a knowledge making process, you know, and it's a dialogue, and there are so many people involved in it, and like there's a lot of contested fact, you know, and even the most established facts, stuff like, I don't really know what E equals mc squared means, but it is possible that will one day be overturned and be made more sense of. I think that's how I understand it. And so I learned how to read psychology papers a little bit because I had to read a bunch of them and had to write a bunch of them. Sort of. You never, like, because it's a bachelor degree, you never really get to actually run your own work. I mean, I could have in my own time, but I didn't, so that's on me. And I could still. But yeah, I learned how they work and how you're supposed to look for discrepancies, look for whether you can actually like trust the work that's been done, because there are lots of pitfalls in running an experiment. So that was super valuable for me, and I feel just a bit, honestly, it mostly made me a bit more epistemically humble, or just humble in general. Like, it just reminded me exactly how little I know, because I still don't feel comfortable assessing most scientific work after a couple of years of trying to learn how to. And, you know, most of it isn't even obviously you can only be an expert in a specific area, so it makes sense that I can't really assess anything because I'm not an expert in anything when it comes to science. But yeah, very valuable, very sciencey, much better. Like if you did well at school, you may find it rewarding because it requires more rigor. Whereas music, if you're into music, maybe you're not as into the psychology stuff. I mean, yeah, if you're into psychology, study psychology. If you're into music, study music, I would say. Don't do the opposite. But music, I feel like I got away with a lot more because I could show up and like sing something, and that was a lot of my assessment. Whereas it's just more like bookwork in psychology. And music is also like a wonderful way to meet other musicians and be exposed to music you otherwise wouldn't hear, and that's wonderful in its own way. And maybe you shouldn't do either. Who knows? I don't know you. I don't know if any of that was helpful, but it took a while. So we got 2 more questions left. My biggest inspiration, best mentor, and worst enemy. Goodness me. Well, biggest inspiration, I feel like I've always got someone who's inspiring me at the moment. I'm trying to think of if I had to have one. Oh. Yeah. If I had to have one, come on. Very tricky. Biggest inspiration. It might be Tom York, singer from Radiohead. If you've listened to my music, you can probably hear you can probably hear that I love Radiohead. Maybe not. But I feel like he just has lived a very creative life, done amazing work, and also like kept his family life quite private, and just like, from what I can tell, not let fame get to his head or anything. Sounds like I have a lame response, so I'll give it one more. If I'm honest, it's quite controversial, but I would say maybe my biggest inspiration is Jordan Peterson, who just his books and lectures, psychological lectures, changed my life in a huge way. In about 2017, I was living in my parents' house, feeling resentful at the world for not making me a famous rock star, and he helps me, and his ideas, I suppose, which he says are not really his ideas. They're many great thinkers' ideas. Just really helped me out of a rut in a way that like was really life-changing, and still I have like this sort of working model of him in my head, helping me navigate the world, reminding me to like not lie, things like that, because it's so easy to lie to yourself, and often you don't even realize at the time. So keeping me on the straight and narrow that way was so life-changing, just trying to like be honest with myself, listen to my actual feelings, and not claim to feel things that I feel like I should feel or whatever. Or feel like, like I'd often like to believe that I was some heroic figure who like didn't get angry at people, was incredibly patient and stuff. And I actually am probably incredibly patient. I think my students would attest to that. But sometimes I'm not, and you got to listen to that fact. Otherwise, you'll let your irritation come out unconsciously, and then it's way more dangerous than if you're like, I'm irritated. Usually I find saying like, hey, I'm irritated, even to a younger student, they respond well to it. Maybe that's controversial. Anyway, I mean, the JP thing, Jordan Peterson thing, is probably more controversial, but he's probably one of my biggest inspirations. Best mentor. Now that's tough. Weirdly enough, probably, I'll say 2. One was a guy called Julian Barker, who's a trumpet player, or was a trumpet player. He's a great chef. I think that's what he does now. He's a chef in Melbourne. He played in the Canberra ska band called Los Capitanes, and he was my trumpet teacher for a couple of years. And he just introduced me to different music. He gave me recommendations of sort of badass, like hardcore, the rock and roll symbol. Yeah, he showed me cool music, and he was a cool dude. You know, he had spaces and wore cool clothes and played and was deeply. He was passionate about trumpet and about learning to play interesting music. I think he got me playing a Miles Davis solo, for example, like a transcription that he didn't get me to do the transcription, which would have probably been wise, but maybe would have been beyond me at the time because I was about 13. 13 was a big year for me. Learned from this guy, started my own band. I mean, I didn't actually start it, I should be clear. Two of the other guys approached me and said we should have a band, and then we did. I think that was Sill and Coffee. Maybe Nathan, Sill and Coffee. Who knows? They all have odd names. Sill and Coffee are odd names. Coffee, Alex's last name. Alex Coffee is I think New Zealand-based musician. Really cool. And Sill is Dr. Sill on YouTube. Shout out to Dr. Sill. One of my biggest supporters, I would say, as in he comments often on my videos. And I on his. What else we got? Oh, worst enemy? Probably myself. I feel like that's true of anyone who hasn't had like war crime, like had someone, you know, murder their family or something. And even then, maybe you're still your own worst enemy, you know? Really. That's probably the wise truth. I don't know if it's how I would feel if I'd had my family killed by someone else. So worst enemy, probably me. Boring answer. Trying to think of anyone who's really wronged me, but like, I don't think there is anyone. There was a guy, I shared a house with a fellow called Nathan. Shout out to Nathan, who comes to mind when I think of worst enemies, but he just like called me out for not cleaning he called me out like a bit publicly and like less tastefully than might have been advisable, but he just called me out for not cleaning the house properly when we moved out of there. And I think that was fair enough, although he probably had his own baggage as well. But that hurt my feelings, so that's why he popped into my head. Yeah, that's all I got. But I've only love for you, Nathan. If you're out there, different Nathan to the guy I did a band with. Who else we got? Favorite comedians. Favorite comedians: Louis C.K., Theo Von, Andrew Schultz, and maybe Joe Rogan got me into comedy. Like my brother was watching a Joe Rogan special and I was mesmerized. I walked past him and was mesmerized. And that was when I kind of discovered, comedy is interesting, really cool. And although actually my first ever experience of comedy was Eddie Izzard. The guy made me lose my shit when I was, like, again, 13, 14, formative years. Morning/bedtime routine, easy. So, morning, I get up, I drink a cup of slightly salty water, and a cup of normal water, to get real hydrated. It's Andrew Huberman told me to do it. I'll leave it at that. Then I do my morning pages. That's 3 pages freehand of anything, just taking out the psychological garbage. I do that as fast as I can manage, but it's, often I'm relaxed about it. But it takes, probably averages half an hour, I would say. It takes a little while. Then I make breakfast, which is usually oats and a cup of tea. A cup of black tea, strong. It's my one caffeinated beverage for the day. And then I get on with the day, and I try and make those things a little bit disposable. Like one day a week, it's usually Saturday because I have to get up early. I skip the pages, and I might have a different breakfast or whatever. Like I might not even have breakfast. Ideally, I would be able to function without caffeine. And I think I can okay nowadays because I don't have very much of it. But anyway, I do think that to some extent, routines like this are a weakness as well as a strength. You know, you want to have a routine because habit renders things, helps them not take up space in your brain. You don't spend energy on them, but at the same time, it's really good to be able to improvise on a special day. So that's my morning routine. That's, yeah, salt, pages, breakfast. No, I'm good to go. And then actually, these days, since moving to France, I've tried to make my appearance, try and make myself look pretty, essentially. So I often put on my earrings, put a little bit of product in my hair, and put on some clothes. I wear the same pants almost every day, fun fact. I wash them, sometimes. Bedtime is quite elaborate, and I wish it wasn't. It feels more like a weakness this way. If I don't do it, I often wind up having to get up out of bed and do it because I can't sleep for usually physical discomfort reasons. It depends. Well, yeah. So the routine is as follows. Massage and stretching. This takes about 10 minutes. I do like my bum, my back, and my abs. I'm usually more gentle about the bum and back in terms of this is massage, and I absolutely smash my solar plexus. I put a massage ball right in between my ribs and massage out the what are they called? Transverse abdominis, which just get tight with me all the time. Then I eat a peanut butter sandwich while writing my to-do list for the next day. And that's why, those two things, there's physical as in and I also stretch. I do basically just a glute stretch and a hamstring stretch. To the stretching. It's usually what I do at night. Maybe I'll do something extra, but yeah, that's about it. And then, yeah, peanut butter sandwich while I write my to-do list. Then, and now I've started having a protein shake as well. And then I brush my teeth, stretch my jaw. I do this every night now. I'm not sure it's advisable for most people, but it's what I do. I hang on I'm not even going to show you how to do it because you probably shouldn't do it unless you learn it from someone more qualified than me. Yeah, I take some fish pills, some fish oil pills and a magnesium tablet. I take a puff of Ventolin, for I'm a mild asthmatic, and this seems to help me sleep better. And spray some, usually salt water up my nose, but sometimes some of that Nasonex, some of that steroid spray that really clears the sinuses and may turn out to, who knows what it may turn out to do, but I'm skeptical of it being quite as safe as people claim. They sell it you can just buy it off the shelf in Australia. You can't in France. They make you get a prescription, which is really annoying. Same with Ventolin. And then I have a shower. And then while I'm in the shower, I boil the water, at least in winter, for a hot water bottle. And then I put the hot water bottle in my bed after the shower. I moisturize my hands. I read in bed for between 5 and 20 minutes, I would say. And then I go to sleep when I'm feeling sleepy. Oh, and when I'm asleep, I use a mask and earplugs, and that way Alice and I can get up and turn lights on and stuff, move around, make noise, and we don't bother each other. I'm in Alice's room, by the way. This is why the surrounds are a little different. Thank you so much for listening to my Q&A with myself. Like and subscribe.
You can stand up. You can stand up on this.